Chapter 3, 4, 5 Review by Elizabeth Arias. Overall idea of the chapters. As a whole, the chapters focuses on new ways of presenting project-based learning to the class. It starts from the beginning of the project idea and ends with the assessment and the grading process of the project. However, the common theme in all three chapters is the role that you, the teacher, will take and what the student should take from this project. So let's start with chapter 3, imagining the possibilities. So the main ideas that I got from this chapter was what is most important, the planning for rigor, and digital age skills, and the last one, keeping your students in mind. So what is the most important? Think of the subject you teach. What is at the heart of the subject? This project should help your students get a better understanding of the subject as a whole. It should get into depth about what the teacher wants them to walk away with. So pretty much the whole point of the project, of this project-based learning, is for the student to actually get a better understanding of the class, of what you're teaching. So the planning and digital age skills. So plans for your students to use higher orders of thinking. So when designing the program or when designing your project, you actually want to use analysis. You also want to use evaluations. Evaluations, and create. So those are the three main things, the three higher orders of thinking that you want your students to use while doing this project. So using the higher orders of thinking will help you design a better project for your students. So it gave the example of a traditional assignment versus a reconsidered assignment. So the traditional assignment is choose one person, study them, write a report about his or her life or achievements. So that's a traditional one. Now the reconsidered one is study 2 to 3 people within the same field. Develop principles for getting into the Hall of Fame. Pick one person and give a response to why they should be welcomed to the Hall of Fame. So obviously I feel that the second assignment will take a little bit more for your student to do, but it's better than just, hey, here you go, pick someone, write a report, study them, write a report, boom, you're done. The other one, it gets more into depth and you get to learn about 3 different people, and then you also get to come up with your own part. So you get to be creative. That's where the creative part comes in. So keeping your students in mind. So I know many teachers do keep their students in mind, but sometimes, we have standards that get in the way. We have expectations that get in the way. So just remember to keep your students in mind. When tapping into your students' interest, you will have students that will dive right into the project and get in depth. The student will feel that his or her enthusiasm is being met with an assignment, therefore connecting the learning with a positive feeling. So chapter 4, strategies for discovery. So the main ideas that I got from this chapter was sharing ideas, designing terrific projects, getting started, and the best project shared important factors. So the sharing ideas. Although you may have many good ideas, collaborating with other teachers within your school will help you get the whole picture of PBL. As a team, you can come up with the idea that would include more than one subject. So this means like, you can have a math teacher and a science teacher, and you can come up with a project together that incorporates both math and science. This is not something that is done once and you're done. Teachers have to continue their brainstorming sessions throughout the year. So designing terrific projects. So it talked a lot about getting started. One of the things to remember when designing your project planning is flexibility. If for some reason your project takes a turn to the right rather than going straight as you had planned, it's okay because you are flexible. So in the book it gave the example of thematic learning versus project-based learning. So for example, I put these pictures right here so we can get a better idea of kind of what I'm trying to explain to you. So, for example, in the book, it gave the example of oceans. The theme is added into every subject. So for math, they're counting seashells. For snack, they'll have goldfish. Um, for language arts, they'll they'll come up with words that have to do with the ocean for their spelling test. So that's what thematic learning is. So now the project-based learning so your main theme is oceans. So you can break it down to seafood, boats, life, sea life. Listening to the students' questions and interests. So that's why when I make the picture, so that's why I have this picture right here, and then I have this picture right here. So this is just traditional waves, and then we have this big wave that has a bunch of other stuff that's attached to the ocean. So that's just so you can get a better understanding of what I'm trying to say. The best projects share important factors. So in the book, it actually gives a lot of factors of what makes a good project. But I just kind of jotted down the ones that stood out the most for me. So when designing your project, keep in mind these qualities. So these qualifications. So flexibility, we talked about that already in the previous slide. Students' interests, we also talked about that already. Centered on student questions. So if you hear your student talking about oceans and then they go from how is this boat made or how do boats float? Then that's the question you should be focused on, and your project should probably be based on boats and how boats float and how boats move in the water. So that's what it means by centered on students' questions. Reaching out for schools, reaching outside of schools. So your project shouldn't only be, within the schools. It's intended for your students to go outside of the classroom and continue exploring and continue working. Lastly is set it up so that students can learn from each other. So that's why projects should be a collaboration between students. One of them, students have many different strengths in many different areas. So if you team them up, they'll outshine. Everybody will outshine one, the other will outshine the other, but in different areas. So set them up for collaboration. Chapter 5, Making Assessments Meaningful. So this one only has the whole chapter kind of focuses on just assessment part. So it only had two really main ideas that I felt were. So it was assessment in PBL and then planning for summative assessments. So authentic assessment in PBL. As a teacher, you will have to come up with your own assessment. So once again, meeting up with other teachers to make one as a group is the best. Once you have developed an assessment system, make sure that your students also know what is expected from them. So let's go back to the second sentence where it says meeting up with with the other teachers as well. The book actually made a very good point about making just one as a group. So that's where I got this quote from. If you have a common rubric, they do not have to figure out the rules for 6 different teachers. And this is on page 97. So, every teacher has a different rubric, has a different assessment, has a different way of grading. But if you work at a school, like an elementary, middle school, and if you have the same one, your students won't be forced to memorize, what is expected from this class, what's expected from the other class. So sitting down as a team, coming up with one that is good enough for all classes as a whole, that's great. that was actually one of my favorite points in all these chapters. So the planning assessment part. So this part, the point of this project is to see what the student will learn or has learned. So this best way to do this is by this figure right here. So the objectives, what will students learn through this project? And it all, as you can see, the arrows don't stop. It all kind of, it all kind of goes together. It's all it's all a circle. So your evidence, which is what the assessment the assessment part comes in handy, is what did your students learn from this project? So what would they need to demonstrate to show that they learned? And then the activity, what approaches may they take to go from not knowing to knowing? And then it goes back to the objectives. So that is my whole review on these 3 chapters. I actually really did enjoy it. I do feel that there is a lot more information, but I only have 15 minutes and I kind of flew by. So sorry if I went too fast, but the book does have a lot of good points. It shares, it has a lot of tips, and it gives you a lot of suggestions on ways that you can improve and just different ways that you can help your students get the most out of your class. So this is the book I used, your field guide to real world projects in the digital age. Also, there was also a section that I didn't get to, and it was about using the technology that your students knows. So there was a teacher who let the students use their cell phone cameras, and they were able to take pictures that were incorporated in their projects. And that's also a new way that teachers are incorporating technology. So go ahead and just skim through it. It's actually really good. Out of those 3 chapters, I actually think chapter number 4 was my favorite. It had the strategies of how to actually, strategies of discovery and how to come up with a good project. And it also went over it covered pitfalls. So it also covered tasks online and how to just keep on it, and it gave you different strategies on like online summaries by using Google Forms, which I didn't even know they had, and I actually went into my Google account and I went into my Google Forms and I actually played around with it a little bit. So that was interesting. But yeah, overall, very good read. I really did enjoy it. So yeah, that is my review on chapter 3, 4, and 5. Thank you.